I move to health insurance and health in general. A lot of economists and others have very often equated the health of a nation with its prosperity, which is very correct. A healthy population is a more productive population. It can contribute much more to the overall economic development of the country. In this budget, the government is going to launch a health protection scheme which will provide health cover up to rupees 1 lakh per family below the poverty line. And for senior citizens, an additional top-up package of 30,000 rupees will be available. One more very good move by the government. Before I come to that, let me just tell you about this. Right now, for poor people, there is something called Janata insurance or universal health insurance, by which poor families are covered up to 30,000 rupees per year at a very small premium. It is based on that they should be able to pay only 1 rupee per day. So if it is an individual for about 360 rupees or so, you will get covered up to 30,000 rupees. If it's a family of 4 or 5, it may go to about 700 and odd rupees. Believe me, even this cover is better than having nothing. I have recommended this cover to a number of people who work as domestic help, lift people, gardeners, workers, attenders, security staff. I know one person who is now in his 60s. He's got very serious respiratory diseases. He does some light work, quite poor. About 3 or 4 years back, we purchased this policy for him. In a year, invariably 2 or 3 times he gets admitted to hospital. Of course, general ward, so everything is charged at a much lower level. Each time he goes into hospital and comes out, he may be there for about 5 days, 6 days sometimes. The bill will be anything between 7 or 8,000 on the lower side and 12 or 13 on the higher side. His total expenses, just on hospitalization, medication, etc., would possibly come to about 30,000-40,000 rupees per year. He has got this cover of 30,000. It's not that 30,000 is given, but he is at least able to recover 24,000 to 25,000 rupees out of his hospitalization expenses of 40,000-45,000 rupees, which is a huge help. Now, for people like that, increasing that cover or coming out with a new health policy that is going to have 1 lakh per family and a 30,000 rupee top up for senior citizens, I think this is an absolutely excellent move. We need universal health cover because the costs of diagnostics and the costs of medical treatment are increasing by the day. Poor people will no longer be able to afford it. The other thing is renal failure, dialysis. This is also an excellent move, a very, very expensive treatment. Even the simplest forms will possibly cost something like 2,000 rupees per week. That's more than 1 lakh a year. The rich may be able to afford it. The poor may not be able to afford it. Somebody earning 5,000 or 6,000 rupees a month and then having a family to support on that income may not be able to afford it. The government is trying to make this kind of treatment available throughout the country, at least in the district hospitals, so that it reaches the real poorest section of the population. Once again, in lighter vein, a lot of people would argue that what is a 1 lakh cover, what is a 1,30,000 cover? Even we, for any middle class family, today we start, when we advise, we start at maybe something like 5 lakh rupees per annum family floater. But let me tell you, for poor persons in a general ward kind of situation, a lot can be taken care of with a cover of about 1 lakh or 1,30,000 for senior citizens. I now turn to examining this whole controversy about the Employees Provident Fund. We have to understand it in the correct perspective. It is very easy to say that the government tried to tax Employees Provident Fund and then withdrew it. We should know why. If you take advanced countries, I am taking advanced countries for one good reason, because the government was saying that we should reach there. So the comparison was between advanced countries and India. In advanced countries, retirement funding is allowed and encouraged based upon two systems. One is the EET system, the other is the TEE system. EET stands for exempt, exempt, taxed. TEE stands for taxed, exempt, exempt. EET means when I invest, say for example in the Indian context in the PPF, under section 80C I can get a certain exemption. All interest on my PPF is exempt from tax. In the PPF, when I withdraw finally, that is also exempt. But in advanced countries, if you had something like the PPF, when you withdraw, all withdrawals are added to your income. And you are taxed at whatever tax rate is applicable to you. The rationale behind this is that during our working lives, let's say somebody who is in employment receives salary. The salary pushes you into a certain tax bracket. When you have retired, only when you have retired and you are not earning, are you going to now start drawing from your pension funds and your retirement funds. At that time you don't have salary income. So most people will fall into a much lower bracket. Therefore, this will not hit you very hard. This was the rationale, number one. And number two, no government wanted to give all three benefits, EEE. So either EET or TEE. In the United States, I'll just give you, there are about 5 methods of avoiding tax. Very briefly, one is called the Individual Retirement Account, or the IRA, which is open to people of slightly lower means, people who earn lower. Let's say 25 up to $36,000 per year. People who are clerks, typists, those sort of people. The next is for the people who are 60,000, 70, 80,000 or more employed. These people have the 401k plans or the 403e plans, where you can invest under about $16,000 or $17,000 into these plans. Then for self-employed people, there are what are called the KEOG plans, KEOGH, where you can put quite a bit, $25,000 or $30,000. The fourth way of avoiding taxes, parents or grandparents can provide for either their children's or grandchildren's future higher education by means of something called college savings plans, CSPs, or CSAs, college saving accounts. And the fifth and the last way of saving tax is, of course, what we in India call the housing loans, what they there call the mortgages. I'm drawing your attention only to number 2 there, the 401k plans, which would affect most middle class people there. There are 2 options that you have. You can go for EET or you can go for TEE, but more importantly, you can go for both. A cousin of mine who was earning well in the US and who has attended many of my lectures, who knows a lot about personal investment and finance, when he started working in the US, he asked me a question: which should I opt for? Should I opt for EET or should I opt for the Roth version? Roth version is the TEE version. Now, I know that this man is in his mid-20s. He has about 4 decades of working life in front of him. He's not a spendthrift. He's going to save. He's going to build up a very good portfolio of savings. When this person retires, he will have a very big amount. And then if he wants to enjoy life a little, travel, do all these things, he will be making bigger and bigger withdrawals from his retirement fund because he can afford it. But those big withdrawals are going to push him into high tax brackets. So the advice I gave him was, and this is the beauty of investment. In investments, you can always have a middle path. The middle path is, I told him, now you're saving, whatever you're saving, divided into 2. Half of it put into the EET, half of it put into the TEE, which is possible in the US. When the time comes for withdrawal, 4 decades from the time you have started investing. Nobody knows what the basic exemption level will be. Nobody knows what the income tax rates will be. Nobody knows what the rules and regulations will be in anything. But you have at least 2 options, not 1. If the tax rates are high, you can start withdrawing from your TEE portion, because when you are withdrawing, they are tax free. If not, you can withdraw from your EET portion, or judiciously you can make some small withdrawals from both. So at the time you are investing, you are getting some tax benefit on the EET investments. When you are withdrawing, you have the option to withdraw from tax-free investments. So this was the kind of advice given. Now this is what we have abroad. An individual can choose to have part of his retirement contribution as EET and part of it as TEE. But EEE is almost never heard of. In India, the PPF and Employees Provident Fund, EPF, also the superannuation funds, recognized provident funds, they are EEE investments. The ELSS, Equity Linked Savings Scheme, comes close because that STT, Securities Transactions Tax, which you pay when you redeem a EET fund, is so negligible as to be laughable. So essentially, they are very close to EEE. So we have EEE investments in India. Now, in the light of this introduction, let us examine what the budget tried to do. The first investment it tried to tackle is a relatively new investment called the NPS, or the National Pension Scheme. What it proposed was that 40% of the corpus that is withdrawn from the NPS at the time of retirement will be tax-free. Earlier this was taxable. The excess over 40% of withdrawals, that means the remaining 60%, will be taxed unless you invest it in the annuity of an insurance company. Compared to the former situation, the NPS has become better, and this has not been rolled back. Today, if you are asking any question about the NPS, please note, old situation was NPS, when you withdraw it finally, 40% was added to your income and taxed, 60% you could put into an annuity and you could avoid tax. Today, 40% is tax-free. Formally, even if you withdraw everything and put it into an annuity, it would escape tax. If you did not put it into an annuity, it was taxable. Now 40% you are allowed to withdraw tax-free. On the balance, unless you put it into an annuity, you are going to be taxed. You can imagine somebody who has saved all his or her life, the amounts will be very big. And the amounts, when they are withdrawn and when they are added to income, it will go into a very, very high income slab. So compared to what it was, 40% now being tax-free, the NPS has become marginally better. But I have never advocated the NPS for anybody. I am not advocating it even today, even after it has become better. For one simple reason, I do not like anybody being compelled to put money into an annuity. Annuities are horrible products. Believe me, I have been reading on finance and investment since the age of 16. That makes it about 36 or 37 years now. Not one great author in the world has ever recommended investing in an annuity. Because you lose control of your capital is taken, and your capital and some interest is paid to you across X number of years, of course depending on the terms and conditions of the annuity. There are a number of various types of annuities. We will come to annuities a little later. Superannuation funds, Employees Provident Fund and RPFs. Budget 2016 proposed that withdrawals from these 3 types of funds up to 40% of the corpus at the time of retirement would be exempt from tax. This would apply in respect of corpus created out of contributions made after 1st April 2016. Old ones would not be touched. At the moment, withdrawals from the 3 categories of retirement funds mentioned above are totally tax-free. If annuities were purchased with the remaining corpus, there would be no tax. If not, withdrawals over 40% would be added to income and taxed. Annuities bequeathed to legal heirs, that is, if somebody dies and there is some annuity amount that will pass on, that would be tax free. These were the budget provisions. Immediately there was an uproar. How the government could not have foreseen this beats me, because there are some intelligent people there, but how they could have foreseen that people are going to take this lying down, it really beats me. So immediately after that, one day later, the finance ministry issued what they call a clarification. What they stated was that the new measure of 40% exempt and 60% taxable at withdrawal stage would apply only to those who are earning more than rupees 15,000 per month and have voluntarily contributed higher amounts to EPF and are highly paid, that is, should be taken with a pinch of salt, employees of private sector companies. In short, what it meant was that out of 3.75 crore EPF holders, about 3 crore would not be affected by this provision. That's what they said. But the damage had already been done. All governments have to deal with this one law called the law of unintended consequences. Very clever people come out with a particular scheme or a particular law to attain a certain objective. Once it is passed, very often they find that not only is that objective not being achieved, the opposite is happening. On the EPF, the government continued to tie itself up in knots. On 2nd March 2016, Arun Jaitley said that he would announce his final decision on this matter during the budget debate in Parliament. He further came out with the laughable defense that the intention behind the EPF proposal was not revenue generation. Then what is it? Then it simply means that the government of India has decided now to become an employee of insurance companies, because you're forcing people to put a large amount of money in the EPF. Something was not taxable fully. Now you are making it taxable. How do you say that my objective is not revenue generation? Then what is it? The revenue secretary, supposed to be a very intelligent man called Mr Adhia, and this came in the Hindu business line of 3rd March. He expressed surprise that people were opposing this. His exact words were, "I am really amazed. A reform whose time has come, people are blocking." He said, adding that the move was intended to create a pensioned society. Why should educated people oppose this? This is what he asked. The astounding thing is how they could not see the answer, because the answer or several answers are staring them in the face. Number one, you are forcing people to go for annuities. Are annuities good investments? If you ask me, if anybody has even by mistake bought an annuity, they should not disclose it to anybody. They should hide their face in shame, because if they say I bought an annuity, it is as if you are wearing a big placard on your chest and back and roaming around saying that I know nothing about investment. These are truly horrible investments. What income you get from annuities is fully taxable. That is point number one. The second is, when you purchase an annuity, the annuitant loses control over the capital. Whatever you have given there, you totally lose control over capital. Especially if there is an emergency and you want the funds, you will not be able to lay your hands on them. Annuities are costly, relatively low return products, good for the insurance brokers and insurance companies that sell them, rather than the unfortunates who buy them. This is what we have to understand about annuities. The track record of annuity returns in India is that they are pathetically low. They are varied between anything between maybe 6% and 7.5%, which you can easily get in a bank deposit. PPF would give you much higher. And please understand that those low returns are fully taxable. So it is the insurance companies and the annuity brokers who make the most amount of money. So if you ask me, for me, annuity is not pension, it is poison. It is absolute poison to a person's financial life. Now, Mr. Mr Adhia is an IAS officer. When he retires in a few years, he is going to get his DA-linked pension from the government. he is not going to be forced to buy an annuity. The common man will have to do it. So the best thing to be done is, I am willing to accept all they are saying, all what they are saying. If all the present top level bureaucrats in the government of India say that, okay, since we should move to a pension society, since this move is so good to tax the EPF, all of us will voluntarily give up our post-retirement pensions, we will get lump sums, we will totally buy annuities. Let us see how many people do this. When called upon to practice what they are preaching, you will find them suddenly singing a different tune. A much more sensible solution would be to give employees a choice between simple and sensible debt, inflation protection, equity and balanced products with both the options. Give people both the options, tell them in advance. You have got EET, you have got TEE. Sorry, for new investments from today, we cannot give you EEE. That would have been a much more better option, especially if they are talking about aping what is happening in the advanced countries. Somebody who knows about investment will then be able to make the correct choices. From Bloomberg, a journalist called Barry Ritholtz, he said this: keep it simple in any investment strategy, do less and manage your stupidity. This is one case where the government could not manage its stupidity. They tried to tinker around and they had to pay a very heavy price for it. On 6th March 2016, the Ministry of Labour conveyed its displeasure at the EPF move. Luckily, there is more than one ministry there, so the Labour people were all up in arms. On the same day, the Prime Minister's office advised the Finance Ministry to put the EPF tax proposal on hold, and on the auspicious day of 8th March 2016, the Finance Minister announced in the Lok Sabha that he was withdrawing his proposal to partially tax EPF exemptions. That is how the matter ended. The one good thing that I saw in this particular ministry is, it didn't take too long. Generally, the trend in India is, you make a mistake, you spend half your life denying that you ever made a mistake. Then the labor unions will organize street protests. One or two people will lose their lives because the protests will get violent. Only after that, things will be re-examined and withdrawn. Here it was relatively quick. That is good. EPF was tinkered with. Tax on dividend income over 10 lakhs was increased, but only the EPF tinkering was rolled back. Why was it rolled back? It is simply because, you see the numbers, 3.75 crore EPF account holders, almost every one of whom is a voter. So it was not out of the love of the EPF account holders that this was rolled back. But the number of people who earn more than 10 lakh of dividend income per year, they are relatively nothing. So nobody is even talking about it now. It's all a fait accompli. It's over and done with. The one good thing that happened in this whole EPF fiasco is, people bluntly asked the government one question. The same question was repeated. I've never seen this happening before on an economic issue in India. So there is hope for this country. It's not just the labor people. A number of people from a cross section of society very bluntly asked the government one question: who are you to decide how we should spend or invest our money? We have put our money in retirement savings. We have put them for the long term. You had the money to utilize, and the government always needs money. Now, after blocking it for a very long term, yes, we might have got some tax benefits, but we have also blocked, we have contributed to productive activity in this country. After such a long time, we are now withdrawing this, maybe sometimes even after 30, 40 years of retirement. And if we have to withdraw before that, we are penalized. So, same question, who are you to decide how we are to invest or save? And there was an excellent editorial in the Hindu Business Line of 9th March 2016. I have just reproduced it here, worth reading it. It is not there, that is the government's business to micromanage how savers go about doing this, that is investing their retirement benefits. Why shouldn't a retiree decide based on needs and risk appetite to invest his or her corpus in bank deposits, monthly income mutual funds, or medical insurance in place of low return annuities. The other contention that retirement savings are taxed globally on an EET basis stands on thin ground too. In a country that solely lacks proper social security cover, the EPF is an extremely important nest egg for the middle class. In contrast, governments in the developed world fund myriad social security schemes ranging from unemployment benefits to state-sponsored healthcare. The level of social security there is totally different from India. The options you have there are much more than what you have in India. Here everything is still very controlled, very rigid. So this is not the environment in which once you have given a benefit, once you have led a large number of people to believe that there will be no tax on things like the EPF. This is not the country and certainly not the time, maybe 30 years from now perhaps, but this is not the time to suddenly tinker with this and make people insecure.